Immigration fraud. We are in an era of increased scrutiny on all kinds of immigration benefits adjudication, and a lot of people worry that they're going to somehow get caught up in immigration fraud, or maybe they don't worry enough. So that's what I want to talk about. Every filing that you submit to the government, everything you say at a visa interview, everything you say at when you're admitted into the U.S. at a port of entry, it all goes into your permanent record. It doesn't mean it's all going to be extremely easily accessible or that anybody's going to look at it or think about it again, but you are building a record from the first time. Even if you submit a DS-160 application and it's not the one you end up associating with your visa interview, you've given them all of that. And over time, the government is getting better and better and better at not losing your records and actually being able to go back and see what you said and hold you accountable to all the previous versions of truth that you gave them. It is getting so much riskier to leave out or be inconsistent with yourself. Here's a really common example. A lot of people don't want to admit that they have family in the U.S. on their DS-160 application. And then later they admit that they do. This is the kind of thing that can really mess you up. So it's these little omissions that can get you tagged with a finding of material misrepresentation. So for a fraud finding, the misrepresentation, like the lie, needs to be material. It actually has to have mattered in the decision. But there's a lot of subjectivity into what's material or not, or what could have changed. Whether you have a sibling who lives in the U.S., like, does that actually affect your visa application? I mean, probably not. Probably isn't that important. But if you hid it and then later you reveal it and then you're caught in your lie, you've totally shot through your credibility. That would be in a visa adjudication scenario, typically. We are certainly in an era where you can expect way more review of everything you said in the past. So when you are getting your green card, they're going to be looking at how you were admitted to the U.S., how you maintain your status in the U.S., what you said and your different extensions. When you're naturalizing, they're going to be looking back to when you became a lawful permanent resident. They're going to be looking all the way back to when you first came to the U.S. It's so tricky to even know what you said if you didn't keep good records. Always keep good records of everything you've given the government. Always have it as a basis to remind yourself and have, sometimes it's hard to remember, especially if it's been a really long history. But whatever you say, it should be true, and you got to stick with it and continue to assert those same facts about yourself. It's really problematic, to change, say that you were admitted without inspection. Another time you say that you were admitted in a specific time and place with whatever documents. Like, you want to stick with one true story the whole way through, and don't change it up on different types of filings. It's really important that if you're working with different attorneys and filing some stuff yourself or whatever, that everything's consistent, that everything fits together, that none of them are contradicting each other. This can be as simple as when you're an H-1B worker and you do a labor certification, and then you do an I-140 petition, then you do an adjustment. Everything needs to reflect back to this accurate retelling of your career milestones. When did you change jobs? When did you change titles? All those dates that you're stuck with, it gets reported on your labor certification. So the job history that you report on your labor certification application should be consistent with your H-1B record. It should be consistent with your resume. Everything should fit together and match carefully. I have seen I've been hearing more people tell me about opportunities they've been given as they're building their profile, as they're preparing for an extraordinary filing in EB-1, or maybe a National Interest Waiver. I would say, if it sounds too good to be true and it stinks like it's not legitimate, then it's not legitimate. You should not be paying for it, and you should not associate yourself with it whatsoever. Example, if somebody offers you that they will write an article for you and get it published for you, it's not legitimate. You shouldn't do it. If you do it, and your petition gets approved and that was part of the basis, then you've got this permanent vulnerability. Because if there's some fraud bust and it's associated with something that you're also associated with, that can haunt you for years in all of your future immigration benefits that you try to get. You're never really going to get away from it. You're never going to safely know you got through it and you got away with it, because at any point they can say, oh, we just realized that, this journal is totally bogus. So anybody who published in this journal can't be trusted. Their petition can't be trusted. We got to reopen it. We got to revisit. We are in such an era of scrutiny and distrust over our immigration system and people who are using it, that you just have to do everything you can to stand on the ethical side and distance yourself from any shady business that you fall upon. One thing that that hurts a lot of people is that you're from another country, maybe not familiar with how things work here and who are the right people to do things. Like notary and is not the same as lawyer. Lawyer in the United States, how do you know if they're licensed? Every lawyer who practices in the United States is supposed to be licensed in a specific jurisdiction. So it's a state or it's Washington, D.C. You can look up in the state where the lawyer is licensed and you can check and make sure that your lawyer's name is on there and that your lawyer hasn't been disciplined. That's a great thing to do to make sure that the lawyer, actually is a real lawyer practicing. A lot of immigration lawyers, not all, but most good immigration lawyers, probably the vast majority, are members of the American Immigration Lawyers Association. You can go on their website, you can look up your lawyer, you can see if your lawyer's on there. You can ask your lawyer about their credentials, and you should want to know where they are barred and what is their bar number. Then you can make sure that it's true. This is a good way to make sure that you are spending your money and investing your trust and giving your case to somebody that has a good shot of doing it ethically and correctly. Doesn't mean that a lawyer is good. And it's still hard to know, like, what is your lawyer's approval rate? And, are all of your lawyer, it's still pretty opaque. Kind of like, when you go to a doctor, how do you know if your doctor's good? But at least at the minimum, you can make sure it's a real licensed lawyer in good standing in the state where they're practicing. Immigration law also, it's pretty common for lawyers to be licensed in one state and maybe living somewhere else. That gets a little bit more complicated, but because immigration's federal for most filings, it's totally fine that the lawyer is living one place and has a license in another, but they're filing things to USCIS. They could do that. Now, if they're going to court for you because you're in removal proceedings or something, then they do have to be admitted to practice in the jurisdiction of the court where they're showing up. But that's not really an area where we see a lot of notaries honing in. It's really much more so with USCIS filings. So notaries and consultants and lots of other helpers are going for where the work is. It doesn't mean they're all like evil and none of them are doing good work, but keep in mind the difference between what is a practicing lawyer in the United States and what isn't. And if you have a practicing lawyer in the United States, then when they file your case, they should put a G-28 on it, which is them authorizing, that's you and they sign that this authorization is represented, and they're going to stand by you and they're going to stand by the work as your case is proceeding. If they expect you, if their role is like silent, like your silent partner that prepares everything and there's no G-28, ask why. Why wouldn't they want to be associated with their own work? Why wouldn't they want to be accountable? Why wouldn't they want correspondence about the case to be sent to them? That would make me certainly hesitant and distrustful. I would want a lawyer who would stand by me throughout the duration of our case together.